really a person that believes in conspiracies, but for a second I really was like, something's conspiring because they don't want Frank and I talking to each other. It's too
Really?
much to handle. It's too
Listen,
much to handle.
listen, these days, nothing would surprise me.
Right.
I've gone from being the guy who absolutely needs overwhelming facts and evidence to going, wait a minute, I don't know. And
Maybe we take a pause. What's really happening here? I feel
right.
exactly the same way. I know you
Well,
guys.
thank you for bearing with the technical glitches. Many of our viewers are techies, and they might go, "How does this work when you're on Substack, but you're using another platform?" So
Yes.
we use StreamYard, not to bore people to death, but we use StreamYard to get us onto Substack, and it sometimes, sometimes Substack has issues, sometimes StreamYard has issues, but we're here, and that's all that matters. Olivia, for folks who don't know you, let me just tee this up, and then you can fill in the blanks on your background. But I know that you have served the public in the federal government for years, and we thank you for that service. You served in DHS. You ultimately were an advisor to Vice President Pence. Your specialty is indeed Homeland Security, counterterrorism. You actually had a role on the coronavirus task force back then. And importantly, you made a life-changing decision to walk away from that. And now you are, hopefully, a candidate for Congress in Virginia. What have I missed? Fill in the gaps.
No, I think you and I both come from national security circles. I spent most of my career in national security. I did start early on in Republican circles, but then 9/11 happened. And that was really where was inspired to really seek more. And I wanted to work in national security and prevent that from ever happening again. So I actually started my career at the Department of Defense. I did deploy to Baghdad. I've seen the aftermath of war firsthand, which we can get into that because that's why this war with Iran is just so enraging and upsetting to me, to be honest, of what I'm seeing here that's happened. And then I went on to serve in counterterrorism roles. I served in both Republican and Democratic administrations. I started at DHS, believe it or not, the week before Donald Trump elected. I
Uh,
do remember that day when he got elected. The mood was very different, I'll say, and I literally said to myself and my family and my husband, I'll share this inside baseball. I said I just took an assignment at DHS, and now we're going to be in the hot seat because we had seen the 2016 election. And I think, I don't, I mean, I think we have a similar backgrounds in where we've served, Frank, and I think you'll understand it, especially is I think when we serve, it really, at least for me, it was very important. It's nonpartisan. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I didn't really talk about who I had voted for. I actually voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I had enough that year with what I'd seen with Donald Trump and the Republican Party embracing him, and I had sort of evolved in my views over time. But I chose to hang in there because I was like, I believe that, intel service and military service is nonpartisan, and you serve uh, in whatever capacity you can to make a difference.
You said something I've got to pause and reiterate because it's so important for me as well. This note that one of the saddest things that's happened under Trump is the partisanship in the national security and intelligence communities. It drives me crazy because the notion that in my world FBI agents are sitting around standing at a water cooler talking about politics is insane. It did not happen. We were concerned with our cases, what we might do this weekend, who's going to win the football game, and how are our kids doing? That's it. And this notion that Trump has put in people's heads that everything's politicized, the FBI is politicized, no. And now, but sadly, yes, now it's been a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Yeah. It's I think you understand this more than most. And I stress this because I think about the people in service right now that are trying to figure out how to navigate this. That's something that I lived firsthand the first time around. And it was hard. And I think, I actually took great offense to whenever they would label us as the deep state, or just because we were public servants, or they were undermining the intelligence community. And I was seeing leaders, longtime leaders who served in nonpartisan ways, whether it was people like General Mattis or people at the head of the intelligence community, who were getting removed from their roles because they were speaking on facts and operating on truth. And I think watching that now, I feel like, well, this is pretty rich, right? Like it's come full circle, because now we're seeing truly partisan hacks at the helm of our government institutions. And I, as someone who lives in Northern Virginia, that's where I am running. This community has definitely been impacted by that. And I think about the people still serving right now. They're navigating this dynamic every day. And I think this is very, very real. And look, I mean, we're watching the Comey thing happen today. I mean, these are all concerns that I've had, and I totally resonate with you on the fact that, I worked with a lot of FBI people. I worked with a lot of other intelligence community people. We were there to serve to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
That's why I chose to take on the assignment with Mike Pence. I went there and operated on facts, and we did the best to navigate it.
Yeah, if you can serve a senior leader at that level, it's quite the opportunity. You mentioned you live in Northern Virginia, and yes, I think it's important for the rest of us around the country to remember that those counties, Fairfax and Loudoun and others, are packed with government employees. This similar case is true for close-in Maryland. And yeah, I lived there like 5 different times in my career. And
yes.
It's your neighbors. Everybody's plugged in to some government agency. Sometimes, a husband and wife, both with the government. And what's happening now is impacting your perhaps future constituents more so than almost anybody in the country. Let's talk about your designs for a congressional seat. We're talking and the impact that this morning's Supreme Court decision is going to have potentially on this. There's a graphic up with the Supreme Court headline for those who don't know. Wow, a split decision along partisan lines, 6-3. Samuel Alito wrote the majority. Justice Kagan wrote the dissent and said, essentially, this is the end of the Voting Rights Act. And in very layman terms, to break this down, here's my understanding. And Olivia, weigh in, since this may impact your future in Virginia. What's in a nutshell, what seems to have happened is, look, lower courts had told Louisiana, you gotta fix the problem with your districts. You've only got one majority district. You probably need to fix that. So they go ahead and they add a second majority minority district, and boom, it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. To cut this short, Supreme Court says, nope, you got too many minorities. And you can't do that. And the lower court is wrong and we're right. And now we have chaos that may go across the country in places like Texas and California and Florida and Virginia. Tell us about what's going on in Virginia and redistricting, and whether you know for sure you're going to have a district to run in. What was your morning like?
Well, first, I was very concerned when I saw that ruling with the Supreme Court, because I worry about what this means for the future of minority voting rights. And I think what we've seen with Republicans and what they're doing across the country, I am thinking going forward, forget about me in this district and what this means in this moment. I'm looking to the future and worried about what it means for the voters in Virginia and minority populations and Black and Latino communities, and what that means going forward for them here in this state and across the country. I think that Justice Kagan, it was very blunt in her assessment. She went on the record and she said the Voting Rights Act is essentially, pretty much dead by what this ruling is doing. I think that's something to be taken very seriously. And we should all be taking note of the gravity of what this means, because so many people have fought for this. Right. And that to me was the striking thing today. I just had that pit in my stomach. Just as, I've been waiting for the birthright citizenship ruling, which is a totally separate case. But these are monumental decisions that are happening, that are rolling back where we are as a country. Yeah. And I think that is why this ruling, I think, was very just undermining of many of the things that people have fought for along the way. I think when it comes to Virginia, look, I think we voted here in Virginia and the redistricting passed. And so that is a publicly passed mandated vote. And so I don't know, to answer your question, Frank, to be very honest. Like, I think, it has been hard. I mean, it is hard. I'm not going to be lie to you. To be fully transparent, it is hard when you're calling people and say, will you support my bid for Congress? And they're like, wait, what district is it? It's a new district. Are you running against are you Eugene Vindman? Are you running? And I'm like, no, I'm not running against Vindman. I'm not primary and incumbent. Like, it is the new district. It is. And then I'm like, I'm running in the lobster. Yeah. I'm going to be fighting for my lobsters in the district because it looks like a lobster.
For those wondering what that means, they redistricted to the point that the shape of this weird shape is now looking like a lobster.
Yes, it's a new District 7. You can see it there on the screen there on the right, and it does look like a lobster, and it's got claws that go everywhere. And it is a very large district. And so, look, we are waiting here for the ruling from the Supreme Court. They just had a hearing 2 days ago on Monday, I think. I don't even know what day it is. Sorry, it's Wednesday, but yes. And so we are waiting to see how that rules. I don't know, potentially, if that could impact, or they are watching what's happened in the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, they're two totally different cases.
Right.
But, stranger things have happened. And I think this sort of, the messaging on this right now is a little bit confusing. And it's also just sort of everyone's looking around saying, what is this? What does this mean? And so
I can't imagine.
Hopeful, right? I'm hopeful.
You should be.
Exactly.
I can't imagine gearing up, and I have some sense of what it must be like to say, I'm running for Congress. And this is, this is a big deal. You get your team together, you start the donor thing, it's big and it's life-changing. And you sit there and go, well, wait a minute. I don't know. And then I will tell you, with regard to the larger concern of confusion of the voter, like, well, I don't get it. I felt for that when I was prepping for your guest spot today. The first thing I saw, I go, okay, let me check out the 7th District of Virginia. And I saw, well, wait a minute, the incumbent is Eugene Vindman.
Yes.
What's going on? And is he leaving? And then I go, oh, no, he says he's, because of the redistricting, he's running for a different district now, right?
I know. And that, honestly, out of the gate, that was chaotic. Like, I saw on social media, everyone was committing. I'm like, Olivia, wait, like, we're supportive of you. We want you to run. You're a fighter. We want you there. But why are you taking on Vindman? And I'm like, I'm not taking on Vindman. Like, this is so confusing. Like, I know this is so frustrating. Yeah. And of course, I'm not going up against him. We were colleagues in the White House. He was my ethics counselor.
Oh my God.
Like, I mean, like, we know each other. And so, yeah, it is a little bit hard to figure out. But, at the end of the day, I felt strongly this is, like you said, a very, it was not a decision that I made lightly. And I never thought I'd be running for office. Frank, I thought I would still be serving in the community. And I think I am very passionate about public service. And I think that is, for me, part of the reason that I wanted to feel like I was getting off the sidelines and serve again and continue to fight. This is something, I didn't make the decision to resign from my role and my career to be able to speak publicly. As intel officers, really, no one should have ever known my name. I should have gone on to my next assignment, and I could have. And that's what you do in service. But in 2020, I just felt morally obligated to resign, and I took on the Trump machine. And look, this has been a very long 6 years for me and my family. We've gotten the threats, we've gotten the lawsuits. Rick Grinnell just actually filed again an appeal. I don't know if you're tracking this. Yes, the lawsuit that was dismissed with prejudice for the second time, and was also dismissing a local court, is now being appealed again by Rick Grinnell. Which, by the way, just to be clear, this lawsuit, we know, my lawyers and I are aware that Kash Patel helped fund this lawsuit against me. And it's the same lawyers that are filing the appeal against me, again, that was dismissed with prejudice. They're filing it in the same court. It's the same lawyers that filed the lawsuit for Kash Patel against The Atlantic. So this is one big machine. And yes, I know you are well familiar as well.
I'm familiar with that law firm because they're the ones who filed against me on Patel's behalf, which has been dismissed.
Yes.
Just within the last week or so.
Yay, I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But as you just said, Olivia, they can certainly try to appeal. They told the New York Post, the bastion of journalistic ethics, that they intend to appeal. And so you think it's over. It's not over, and I get it. We all get it. But
it's just lawfare. It's ongoing frivolous lawfare.
Yeah, it's a strategy. It's a strategy for sure. I want you to help us take us through the decision to leave not only the White House and your role, but also leaving the party. What tell us about that?
Yeah, look, I had grown up in a Catholic conservative household on the border. I was raised in El Paso, Texas, in a border town. My dad was a lifelong truck driver. I had come from a very working class family. My mom is Mexican. I am the daughter of a Mexican immigrant. And I think for us, the church really played a role in a lot of our beliefs and views. I think a lot of us, face at and struggle with reconciling certain things and policies along the way. I think my views definitely evolved over time as I got older, and mostly, to be very blunt, it's reproductive rights for women was something that is a struggle. And I think as I got older, faced my own issues in that and on reproductive rights and saw women in my family, I became concerned and realized like I became more and more about it being our choice and our own private choice. And I think that was an issue that I struggled with for a long time. I'll say candidly, over the years, I watched the Republican Party evolved, and I saw what happened when Donald Trump entered the scene. That's why I voted against him. I voted for Hillary, and then publicly, I resigned in a very public way. I did campaign for Kamala Harris. As if you saw, I was an unpaid surrogate for her. I traveled to all the swing states. For me, I think because of my upbringing, and I still have members in my family who are, still very conservative. Some of them are still Trump supporters. We're a very divided family, like many families across the country. It has caused a lot of hard feelings internally. I'll say that it's hard to navigate that. But I went out on the campaign trail and really wanted to reach conservative voters and Republicans because I wanted to grow a bigger tent. And also I wanted to reach them and say, I lived this thing firsthand. I witnessed it. I saw the danger that people like Stephen Miller and Russ Vought and others pose to our country with their extreme ideology. And really, I felt very strongly that as someone who my dad also grew up on a farm, like all of these things that really are my upbringing and a core part of me have been basically attacked. And I feel like the working class is really feeling it right now when it comes to how do we afford to live? The middle class is trying to figure out the struggle of how do you make ends meet? And look, I am not, I don't come from millionaire circles. I'm far from that. I did grow up in working class roots. We are a middle class family. We are public servants. My husband still serves in public service. So for me, watching these issues, the Republican Party, the way they have become so anti-immigrant, their rhetoric is so heinous and ugly. And I watch what ICE is doing to our communities right now. And I watch what they're doing in terms of our healthcare and this war and how that's impacting everything, whether it's gas prices, grocery store prices. I write about this. I don't use it. I mean, fertilizer for farmers. I mean, it all boomerangs back to us here domestically. And I think that they're in the antithesis of everything that I believe in and stand for. And so, and that is why, I mean, I think the Democratic Party is where I've been aligned for years. And that's where I'm going to continue to fight. And I hope that I will continue to also hope to bring more people in the fold. I think we've got to push back on this. And right now, this is where my heart is. And this is where I plan to continue to fight.
You've got an important voice because of your background and because of your insights serving. Your new district, if it stands, the lobster, as they call it, yes, seems to me to go from, people in the upper middle class or higher, close into the district, and then extends down into suburbia and then even into rural areas. So, I mean, that you seem well suited to address all those folks. I want to ask you about, as someone who was raised in faith and in the church, what are you thinking about what's going on with Trump and the GOP and Christian nationalism, the imagery, where he seems to be even mocking religion, where he's looks like he's Christ. What are your thoughts?
Look, this is something that I actually was very concerned about the first time around during the first Trump administration, because it is my personal belief that when I saw people like Russ Vought and the extremism and the way they saw things, these are people that are the architects when you look at Project 2025. That really was the policy playbook. And when I look at people like Pete Hegseth at the helm of the Pentagon, and we see the type of pastors as he's talking to, the rhetoric and the narratives there, this is a really, really concerning trend that we are seeing that leads to extremism, and it also leads to increasing hate. And for me, that circle of increasing violence, increasing this hatred and this extremism and the way they view things and the way they view the world is really concerning, because it's also going to lead to increased violence. And as someone who grew up as in a very devout Catholic family and watching what's happening, it is heinous and disgusting to me to see some of these image and the blasphemy and the hypocrisy that we see from someone like Donald Trump in these images that he's putting up. Also, the attacks on the leader of the Catholic Church, the attacks on the Pope. I mean, I don't know where they think they're going with this, because they basically have upset Christians of all faiths, unless you're in line with this extremism. But the reality is that most people are not. And I think that really it's blasphemy. And, I've said this. I was like, I was around these people quite a bit. I never saw Donald Trump pray once the entire time that I saw him in the hallways or anything. And I think personally, I just think that this is an embarrassing and heinous moment for us, because that is the portrayal that we're putting before the world. And, I saw this article where the Vatican was concerned because, we're taking unilateral action and we're being the aggressors around the world. We've done it with Venezuela. Now we're doing it with Iran, and we're creating these global conflicts. And it was very chilling and very concerning that the Vatican was concerned for their safety and trying to figure out how they're going to navigate this when you take on the wrath of Donald Trump. I mean, this is the leader of the Catholic Church, and the messaging afterwards was also heinous. JD Vance saying, what does the Pope know about theology? And to that sentiment, I mean, are you kidding me?
It is craziness. I think ultimately this does Trump and the Republican Party writ large tremendous harm. And I get the fact that, okay, they've divided us by race. They engender hate against other races, other religions, particularly Islam. I get all of that, and that's well documented. But now, if you had told me, well, what's going to also happen is they're going to divide Christianity. They're going to, there'll be these white Christian nationalists, and there'll be everybody else, and they'll hate the Catholic Church. And you'll have this surreal thing where, well, yeah, they hate it, but the vice president's going to write a book about his conversion to Christianity. But Pete Hegseth is going to have an Easter or a Good Friday service only for Protestants. It's divided churches. And you mentioned you're from El Paso, Texas. You are Latina. What are you seeing within the Hispanic community with regard to this issue? I was on yesterday with Rick Wilson and Joe Trippi, and they're all about the data and the politics, and they were talking about Florida, and their data shows that even among the Cuban community in Dade County, Florida, Trump's losing them. He's lost them. What are you hearing or seeing from back home?
I think that's correct. I think that like I said, I mean, you can't control Donald Trump's messaging because he's going to do whatever he's going to do. I don't know why people that go in and work think that they're going to be the one person that does otherwise, especially with the circle of enablers that we have right now serving there. But I think that he has definitely overdone it and blown it when it comes to Latino communities right now, and they watch it. I mean, they're watching this, and it is blasphemy. These are a lot of the Latino voters are in these communities of faith. I know in my family, I mean, my cousins, we're majority Catholic. I mean, we recently found out that we're part Jewish and I was raised Catholic. And so there's a whole discussion happening internally in my family about how we're partially Mexican Jews. I mean, this is the melting pot of the United States. Right. And so I think we're having these conversations, but I can tell you, like, I have cousins that are diehard Trump supporters that I have heard that this did not sit well with them at all. They're appalled at what happened, and their reaction was one of disgust. And so these were the things that I really tried to warn about in the 2024 cycle and the election of, this is who these people really are. It is blatant hypocrisy. And I tried to reach these communities to really talk to them and explain, like, I understand you're frustrated. I understand you're like worried about everything, the cost, everything's really expensive.
Yeah.
But just know that this is who Donald Trump is, and he does not care about our faith. He doesn't care about our communities. And I think we're seeing that now every single day that this administration is serving in office.
Your insights from being an insider. Tell me about the coronavirus task force and what that was. What was that like? What was going on there?
I was the lead staffer for it. I was actually on the task force from day one because I was the person covering it and tracking it for the Vice President at the time, Mike Pence. And I was there when the markets dropped, when the CDC was very honest in their assessment about their concern about what's coming. And I was there when Trump turned and handed it over to Pence because they wanted to control the messaging, the internal dialogue. And so what I saw firsthand, I think, was horrific in terms of how the doctors were treated that were on the task force. And I'm talking about people like Dr. Fauci and others. This was a moment of crisis where I think we all should have been rowing together. And look, I mean, the virus at the time and everything we knew, it was so unpredictable. But the reality is that we had done exercises on pandemics. We've done war games on pandemics. We know how to run an operation in the US government. But all of that was just basically pushed aside. And so what we were left with was this dynamic of doctors doing their best, trying to figure out how we're going to navigate this in a whole of government response and trying to figure out how we were going to keep American people safe, with a person who was completely irresponsible sitting in the Oval Office, who would come in and derail some of the meetings, who would go out and deliver insane talking points that would oftentimes put people at risk, that were not at all actually what was the discussion that happened in the room or in the meeting. And it became just a very frustrating, angry situation, especially for someone like me who was like, what are we doing here? I've spent my entire career. I joined the service because I wanted to protect Americans and keep them safe.
Yeah.
And right now, we had the president of the United States at the time doing everything that was undermining of anything that these people were trying to do at the time. And so, I witnessed what Dr. Fauci went through firsthand. I had numerous, nonstop hours every day of trying to figure out how we would navigate this behind the scenes together. Yeah. And it was one of the most awful things I've ever actually worked on. And I've done a lot of crisis events in response. And for me, that compiled with what we saw that summer, we saw the clearing of Lafayette Square. I mean, remember that these are all the things that were happening in 2020 at the time. And I think when I look back on that period, that to me was the straw that like broke the camel's back, to speak. That's where I was like, I can't let this person, if I can do anything I can, I will throw myself in front of the bus to stop this person from getting reelected to office.
Yeah.
And that's why I made the decision I did.
Yeah. Well,
and, here we are.
we talked briefly about lawfare, and didn't we hear in the last couple of days that a staffer to Dr. Fauci has come under fire, either indicted or sued? I can't recall
Yes.
which one.
Yes. Yes.
But they won't let go. They will not let go. And I just want to wrap by saying this. I'm a resume guy. When it comes to, I'm not a political guy. I'm a resume guy. What does that mean? It means when I'm making decisions to vote on who I'm going to vote for, I want to look at the resume, whether it's the president of the United States or whether it's going to be a congressional district in Virginia. I want the person to hit the ground running. There's no time for a learning curve. I with senators and presidents, I want this person to be awakened at 2:00 in the morning and know what to do. And it seems to me that your resume, your insights and experience are what is needed in Congress. If we have viewers who want to help, want to check out your website or something, where can they go?
All right, it's just oliviatroye.com. That is my campaign website. I'll be posting updates there along the way. That is the best way to follow me on this journey. And I am a person that does not back down regardless of whatever comes my way and what these people do. And when I get there, hopefully if I elected, I will be looking to serve in committees like Homeland Security, and I'll be looking at oversight, because I fully understand the role of OMB and Rest Vote and what they're doing here.
Yeah.
And I plan to really, truly bring accountability.
Good.
And I just want to represent people in the best way I can and actually start fighting for things that are impacting everyday Americans, and really hold these people accountable, because I just don't see what they're doing. They're certainly not helping the greater good.
Indeed. No, thanks for sharing that. We're glad we got through the tech glitches.
So sorry.
And when do we think we're going to have a final decision on the districting in Virginia?
I hope it's soon. Honestly,
Right.
we don't know. We don't know. I mean, I hope that it's soon.
Right.
The primary is in August, so we don't have a lot of time, but
right.
Hopefully
But you're ready. You're ready to go, clearly. And so
I'm running and I'm meeting voters, and I'll continue to get out there and hear people's concerns and make sure that I'm taking that all in. And hopefully this ruling comes soon so it can settle the confusion and we can actually start to really focus on moving forward on this.
Well, thanks for continuing to want to serve. Everybody, thanks for joining us.
Frank.
And I will see you next time on the Frank Figliuzzi Show. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.